I lost a $40 million deal when I was 22 because I was trying to be too perfect.
If you could give top 3 tips to kind of YouTube success or building a YouTube channel, what 3 things would you suggest? Hello and welcome to another episode of Addicted to Business. It is my huge honor today to welcome Mr. Evan Carmichael to the show. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. How's it going?
Thanks a lot, Nathan. Good to be here, man.
No, I so appreciate your time. I appreciate you've only got 25 minutes, so let's dive straight into it. The question I've got for you first is, how on earth did you build such a loyal following from the get-go?
Well, it wasn't from the get-go. I think I started 11 years ago, April 2009, and the first video that I posted in the first year of 1 year of my first video being up, I had 3 comments on that video. My mom was the first comment. Thank you, Mom. My older sister was my second comment. And then some random guy that I never met was my third comment. And so in a year of our video being up, I had 1 comment from a stranger, and I think a lot of people give up just way too soon on their content. You probably already have more comments on your videos than I had on my first ones. The only difference is I just kept going, right? Like 6,000 something videos later, I just kept going. And people, I think, have great ideas, have great abilities, have a desire to serve and care and help. They just don't have enough momentum because they're starting and stopping and starting and stopping. And the only difference is I just kept going.
I love that. And it's interesting, actually, because too many people think that change is just going to happen, right? They just think, I'll just wait and I won't do anything and it will just come to me. But as we know in life, you sometimes have to go out and get it. Now, for those that don't know your story, Evan, I've been doing some research and having a read, and it's a fascinating one. What I'm interested to know from a personal point of view is, what was that kind of kick up the bum that said, you know what, I'm going to go and make a difference and I'm going to go and do something slightly out of the ordinary? What was that little catalyst that made you do that?
My mom really always encouraged me and my 2 sisters. I'm in the middle of 2 sisters, that we need to serve, that you need to help. There's a picture of her, maybe hard to see, but this is her here on my wall behind me. And the first message from her would be, you're Evan Carmichael. You can do anything you believe that you can. And that, that voice of self-confidence still rings in my ear, but also that you have a duty, you have an obligation to help, to serve, and that if you can, then you must. And I didn't know how I was going to serve or help. I didn't know what the thing was that I was going to do, but that voice kept calling.
Sure.
But I think it's also inside everybody. Like, we know, how good it feels to help somebody else. It's partly why I wrote Built to Serve. This is my latest book, Built to Serve, because in there, everybody is built to serve. Like, it's hardwired into you that you are built to serve. Helping others hits the same part of your brain as having food and having sex. So you want to help others, but who do you help? And how do you get over the fear of rejection or not working out or fear of failing in front of somebody else? I don't think it's a big message to know that you want to help other people. I think that's, you felt it. It's pretty common sense, but people are afraid to do the thing because they're afraid of other people's opinions and afraid of failure and rejection. And so that's part of what I'm trying to teach and help people through.
Let's build on that fear of failure, because actually at 22, you had an ordeal which many will never have, and that's the £40 million deal. So I'm interested to know, just tell me a little bit more about this. First of all, tell the audience kind of what happened there very quickly, just summarize that. And then I'm keen to know how you dealt with success at a young age, because more on a personal point of view, we grew very quickly from the age of 18. Before I know it, we had all this, the kind of financial freedom that we perhaps didn't expect so early. And all of a sudden, that becomes very hard to deal with. So how did you deal with success at such a young age? But before that, just tell me a little bit more about this deal.
He's done his work. Nathan's done his homework. I lost a $40 million deal when I was 22. Because I was trying to be too perfect. I was trying to write the perfect business plan. And I spent an entire summer, working on my plan. And then we took it to market, and we were in the process of trying to sell our business. And the industry, like, I thought, who's going to buy us? And I thought about these kinds of companies would buy us. And I went to the number 1 company in that industry, and they said, no, we're not interested. Like, wait a minute, how you're not interested? It's perfect. Just in my head, it just made so much sense. I had the perfect plan finally after months. But they said, no, we're not interested. So then we started scrambling, and we found another company who was the number 4 player in the industry. And just side note, or lessons learned, it's very rarely the number 1 company that wants to take aggressive swings. It's the number 3, 4, 8 company who's trying to get to number 1, who they're way more likely to be aggressive and take a shot on somebody. So that lesson I learned in that moment. And we talked to the number 4 company, and they said, we're already talking to your biggest competitor, but come join and we'll dive into your business a little bit. And they loved us. They loved the company. They loved what we did, but they had to make a decision quickly. And they said, we've already been working with your competitor for 3 months. The exact amount of time I was spending researching and planning instead of just talking to people. And they ended up buying that company instead of us for $40 million. Now, if I was there 3 months earlier, would I have gotten the deal? I don't know. It's not 100% lock that I would have got that deal, but 50% chance, at 40 million, I'll take that. That's a great, those are some great odds. And so I'm a recovering perfectionist. Like, I've had to constantly battle that to say, no, I need to get it up there. Stop trying to be perfect, get momentum and build. In terms of having success at a young age, once I sold my business, I didn't get $40 million, but I got a decent price. And then didn't have to worry about what I'm going to do next financially, but it was, well, what do I do next with my time? Because I just sold my business and now I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I explored. I went into venture capital for a bit. I started getting asked to do speaking. I started my website, eventually started my YouTube channel, and just basically getting lost in service. And that's what I still way more connect to the startup entrepreneur. I mean, Nathan, when I was starting, man, I was making $300 a month. I was eating beans for lunch every day. I wasn't buying anything because I'm not making any money. When we got a big win, we'd go and celebrate with French fries from McDonald's because we couldn't afford the whole meal. I still remember that, and I still connect way more to the startup, lean, hungry entrepreneur than I do. Earlier this year, I was in Puerto Rico at Brendan Burchard's house with Russell Brunson and Dean Graziosi and Tom Bilyeu and Jay Shetty and like all these, super accomplished people. And I still feel way more out of place there in the world of money than in the startup world is my home.
I love that, because actually one thing that's really struck a chord with me when I've been learning about you and listening to your story was about the vulnerability that you show and the transparency and humbleness that actually you're just saying, like, you're an ordinary person, right? You're just the same as everybody else. You just did something, it worked, and you still remember your roots. And I love that. What I'm keen to explore is around motivation and drivers, because actually a lot of people listening today will go, well, that's great, but Evan's this, Evan's that, Evan did this, Evan got that, Evan had this life, he had that life. Nonsense. Like, anything can happen to anybody. And so actually sometimes, and I can speak from personal experience here, getting rather deep, but sometimes you overcompensate because you've got such a fear of loss or failure and a fear of letting someone down. And I noticed that on your material as well. You're saying one of your biggest drivers is the fear of letting people down. I guess the question for me here is, are there any other things that drive you, or is it purely that sole driver of you just don't want to let people down?
So I actually have to fight against letting people down. So I when I was younger, I would, even something like this, where how many podcasts have I done? I don't know, tons. But something like this, I'd be worried, I'd be nervous. I would be secretly hoping that Nathan would cancel on me.
No
right?
chance.
If this was 10 years ago, but I'd be secretly hoping. I'd be like checking my email 4 hours before, and then 2 hours before, and then half an hour before, like waiting for Nathan to cancel on me. And I would tell myself, oh, I'm just so busy, I got all this other stuff, but really I'm just afraid of not showing up, of not doing a good job. And so I have to fight that constantly. And the thing that gets me through is service, is trying to help, is hopefully I can say something that might impact you or impact one person in your audience, that then makes a difference, that gives them the confidence and courage and motivation to go off and do, what their thing is. So in terms of being a normal person, I mean, I'm an introvert, super shy. I don't talk to people on an airplane. I've had to, overcome all that to get in front of the camera. So how does an introvert go and make videos? You know, like today I'm doing all day from till 8 o'clock at night. I'm doing different shows and podcasts. How does that happen? Well, because I still want to serve. Because an introvert still wants to help, still wants to serve, still wants to feel like everybody wants to feel like the work you do matters, that you're going to wake up today and you're going to contribute something that's going to mean something to somebody. That's how you get purpose and fulfillment. If you wake up today and feel like it doesn't matter if I do anything today, nobody's going to care, that leads to depression, that leads to tons of anxiety, that leads to hating your life.
Seven, I'm going to prod a little bit deeper if I can. I'm keen to know, as we say, problems and challenges, they never go away. You just create ways to manage them, right? What techniques have you had to put in place that people can take away from today that actually go, you know what, when I'm anxious, I do this, or when I'm nervous about something, I do that?
So there's two. And this is great because earlier this year, like this still happens just on a bigger scale, right? So there's a great quote I love where somebody said, "Beyond the mountain is more mountains." So once you climb the mountain, there's more mountains to go and climb. You don't want to just stop climbing. We want to grow forever. So earlier this year, I was speaking at an event out in Whistler, British Columbia, Canada, and Ed Milet and Andy Fusella flew me out there and put me up in like the, fancy hotel room. And I didn't know the speaker list until I showed up, and I was speaking in between David Goggins and Peyton Manning. And David Goggins is like the most intense human alive. And Peyton Manning is maybe the greatest quarterback of all time in American football. And instantly I go to, oh my gosh, I'm between these two people. What am I going to do? How am I going to bring value? I'm like panicking that, again, I'm going to disappoint people, disappoint the audience. And these guys are paying $50,000 to be in part of this group. It's not like it's some free event, right? So the people in the group are already high level entrepreneurs. They paid $50K to be there. And I'm speaking between these two huge dudes. And I'm thinking I'm going to be a disappointment to everybody. Ed's going to, freak out at me that I wasted everybody's time. Like I'm just panicking. And the two things that always help me, and so I say that example because that's a 2020 example. That's not like when I was 18 years old. This is I was 38 or 39 at that time. I'm 40 now. So it still happens. The two things that help me is, one, I like to tell myself that I do difficult things. One of the greatest things that's helped my self-confidence, my self-love, my self-respect is that being scared is not a good enough reason. So if I'm scared, if my heart's beating, then I tell myself, I'm Evan Carmichael, I do difficult things. So scary, difficult, or hard, it just triggers for me that I have to do it because that's my identity. Because you don't want to come up against something scary and then teach yourself that you back down. So there's there's that as the first one. The second is then the service, where what always helps me in that kind of scenario is I look at the audience and I'll look at the faces and say, I'm here to help these people. I'm here to try to bring them value. And that topic was going to be around YouTube success. And what does David Goggins or Peyton Manning know about YouTube success, right? Like nothing, right? So I can teach these people something that these other guys don't know. And so when I gear towards those two things of me just saying, I do hard things, I don't back down from the challenge, and I'm here to serve and help, it always rewires me to then go off and do it. It doesn't mean that I'm still not afraid. Doesn't mean that I'm still not anxious or nervous, but shifting it to be about the audience and them as opposed to about yourself, at least for me, always seems to help.
That's a brilliant point. And I mean, it'd be criminal not to ask, if you could give top 3 tips to kind of YouTube success or building a YouTube channel, what 3 things would you suggest?
So first off, just start. You're overthinking it. Like get your video up, post. You think about what your message would be to your audience or to your kids. It's not going to be only create when you're perfect. So if that's not going to be your message, then you have to go live it and create stuff that's not perfect. So post. Then post consistently. So if you're only posting once a month, even once a week, you're just not going to get very good at it. Think about the skill that you're trying to acquire. Like if Michael Jordan wasn't going to the gym once a week, If you're only trying to do something once a week, it's just going to take you so long to get good at it. Forget about the algorithm and everything else. You just won't get good at it because you're not practicing enough for any skill that you want to develop. So you want to make it a regular habit. And then 3, I would say, make content for the younger version of you. So think about who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. What did that version of you struggle with? And go talk to him. Make the content that Nathan from 2015 would be dying to listen to. Because there's lots of people who currently are Nathan from 2015, stuck in that old mindset, stuck in that old belief system, stuck in those old limiting ways. And you can touch those guys, you can help them. And helping those people will make you feel such a deep level of fulfillment and satisfaction and purpose. Because whenever you see somebody who's a younger version of you, and not younger like age-wise, just a younger version of you, and you help them and you give them hope, that's a high that you'll never lose the addiction to.
So Evan, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you've spoke to some of the world's greatest and most influential business leaders, from Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, kind of Tony Robbins, the list goes on. I'm interested, do those people come to you or do you reach out to them?
At the beginning, it was all one way. It was all me reaching out to them. Yeah. But now over the years, it's been other people coming to me. So, Tony Robbins, for example, I was working just with his team for 2 years, making a video, and I made a video on him, and he posted it to his channel, and I was working with his team, but I didn't know Tony at that time. I had no, even though his team posted it to his YouTube channel, I'm not going to say I know Tony Robbins, and I didn't know him. It's just his team. And I tried to get him on my show, and finally he said yes. And then last minute he canceled because he had something else. Wow. And his team said, hey, and I'm so nervous and so freaking out. And then day of cancels, he's got to go to do something else. And his team says, we'll reschedule as soon as we can. And I stayed in touch with the team and kept helping and kept giving valuable feedback and everything. And it took 2 years until I got the next interview. 2 years of just helping and giving feedback and connecting with his team until he had his next book that came out. And he was, for that book, was only doing 5 interviews that were remote. And so his team put me as one of the 5 interviews. So okay, great. Now I'm super nervous again, and hopefully it doesn't cancel and this happens. And we had a great talk. And then at the end, off air, he invites me to come be his personal guest at his next Unleash the Power Within event in New Jersey, and said, hey, come on, you'll be my guest. We'll connect backstage so I can meet you and shake your hand and take some pictures. And yes, I don't know what I'm doing next month, but I'm going to New Jersey apparently now. And so, I've had the good fortune of, at the beginning, it was me doing all the outreach, but then now whenever people have a new book or want to connect, they're reaching out to me as well.
I mean, that's a nice thing, right? Actually, there's a lovely lesson in there in terms of persistence is key, and just keep knocking at that door and keep trying to make it happen, and believe and it will happen. And that's proof of the pudding today. We had Guy Kawasaki on the show a few weeks ago, and that was a dream. And to have you, Evan, today is another massive achievement. So yeah, just to anyone listening, just keep going and keep pushing those boundaries. So looking at time, we've got about 5 more minutes, if that's okay. Few more questions. I love the value set that you seem to be operating under in terms of paying it forwards and karma and all that good stuff. What I want to know is, what other values do you live and die by?
I think belief is the most important one, right? I think it's the world's biggest problem. People don't believe in themselves enough, and I'm just trying to spread as much of that as possible. So it's why, as an introvert today, I'm spending all day talking to people and being on people's shows, because I want to try to spread more belief. I'm a big advocate is that if you can figure out your most important core value, I go through it in Built to Serve too, but when you figure out, I call it your who. Who are you? What's your most important core value? And when you figure that out, then trying to spread that in the world, be an ambassador for it. And it's always something positive. And Guy Kawasaki is funny because he was the first guy that I had kind of a deal with that put me on. I was making these entrepreneur trading cards, and the idea was reach out to big names, ask them who their favorite entrepreneur was, and put them on the back and put their favorite entrepreneur on the front. And the first person that said yes was Guy Kawasaki. And he said Steve Jobs, you know,
Yeah.
I guess obviously as his favorite entrepreneur. And then I used that to get Seth Godin, and I used them to get other people. And this is way back. So yeah, Guy's one of those guys too, who says yes, who tries to pay it forward, who tries to bring value. And it's cool that we both had Guy as our first kind of
Guy
we did something with.
an amazing guy. I love that. And so 2 more questions. If you were to go back to a 15-year-old version of yourself, Evan, what are you telling yourself? You've got the knowledge you've got now, but you're just a 15-year-old you. What do you do differently?
So I'm 40. So this is, 25 years ago now. The message is still believe. Believe in yourself more. Believe that you can do it. Believe in your ideas. Believe that it's going to work out. And I used to hate this question because I can't go back to 15-year-old Evan. I'm not going to go back to, I don't think backwards. So I don't spend time wishing that I changed something. But I ended up actually loving this question because 85-year-old Evan would come and tell 2020 Evan the same thing.
Yeah.
Whatever the message you would tell your 15-year-old self is still the message you need right now, just on a bigger scale. And when I found that, I was like, oh man, I don't want to make 80-year-old Evan, upset. I gotta believe, because when I get to 80, I want to meet myself and say, you know what, you did good.
What's the end game for you? What does success look like? Maybe you think you've already hit success, and to me and all the listeners, I'm sure you have, but many entrepreneurs I speak to say actually, oh, I'm still not there yet. I've still got a way to go. What does the end game look like? What is it when you're like, you know what, I'm done. This is great.
I never want to be done. So a story that comes to mind is Ted Turner. You know Ted Turner?
No.
Ted Turner. Okay. So a billionaire in the US owns, baseball teams and, tons of money. Anyway, when he was super young, in his early 20s, his father had a goal to be a millionaire, to make $1 million. And when his father hit that goal, he killed himself. And it's funny how often we hit our goals and then we get depressed, as if hitting that goal was going to be the thing. And so Ted decided, I'm going to set a goal for myself that's so big that I'm never going to hit it. And I super subscribe to that. You have a mission that's so big that you're never going to do it in your lifetime. And you get up every day trying to do it in your lifetime. So I want everybody to believe in themselves more, right? I think it's the world's biggest problem. And I wake up every day trying to do that, recognizing that I'm never going to do that. So I'm never done. But it's the story with the seashell or the starfish on the beach?
Nope.
So the starfish, the storm comes in and puts all these starfish on the beach, and they can't get back into the ocean. They're dying, they're baking because they need to be back into the water. And there's a girl who's picking them up and putting them back into the water. And a guy walks back and says, well, what are you doing? You're not going to save all these starfish. There's millions of them here on the beach. And she says, well, I saved that one. And I'm saving this one. And I'm saving that one too. Right. And that's how I kind of approach it. You're on this beach. You're trying to save as many starfish as possible. You're not going to hit the millions of them, but every day you can help another starfish out. So I never want to be done. I'm going to be 120 in an old age home, talking to my pal Nathan on his 10,000th episode of his show.
You'll be back.
Yeah, as long as I can think clearly, I'm helping. I'm serving. If you want to see another awesome interview I did, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.